with a little excerpt from the book, Open Your Mind and Be Healed. One day, in the early 1950s, I received a call from my family doctor. It was one of the most unforgettable days of my life. "Johnny," the doctor soberly said, "I can no longer be of help to you. There is no cure for your condition. And based on the diagnosis that I have shared with you, the prognosis is that you have approximately 6 months to live." The words 6 months to live rang in my ear like the vibration of bells ringing from a church belfry. My mind began to race with thoughts of hurt, guilt, and fear. What did he mean that he could no longer help me? Did he not know that I had my whole life ahead of me? How could my doctor, in whom I placed so much trust, desert me at a time like this? I had seen the many diplomas and certificates on the office wall. I knew that somewhere, someone had an explanation regarding my condition. Why had he just given up? I did not know what to do. However, I did know that I was not ready to die. Every hour seemed like a day with no hope or help in sight. I could not get the words of the conversation out of my mind. I felt betrayed by the medical profession, and I wondered, what had I done to deserve this? Although modern medicine has helped countless individuals recover from heart disease and cancer and strokes and on, many people, like myself, can relate to the betrayal and disappointment that Johnny experienced with modern medicine. And how many of us, when hardship would land on our doorstep, whether it be illness of ourselves, of a loved one, or the loss in its many forms, have pondered that same thought. What did I do to deserve this? And later on, Johnny Coleman, author of Open Your Mind and Be Healed, would come to discover those two concepts were rooted in the consciousness of separation, which I'll talk about a little bit this morning, but then next week I will go deeper into that. You see, placing your faith out here solely on individuals, whether it's modern medicine, professional staff, and not seeing that we have a part to play in it, will leave us as victims. Now, I'm not saying that modern medicine is not a divine idea. I'm not saying that. But a lot of our institutions, including the medical profession, is grounded in separation. That we are a body, and only a body, and we go to specialists. The heart doctor, the gastro doctor, so on, the neurologist, so on and so on, the psychiatrist, the psychologist, and many times they don't look at the whole picture. They don't see the holistic view. That what's going on in the heart has something to do with maybe the liver, or what's going on in our gut affects our brains. And even I've gone to physical therapists because I've had surgery years ago and have instrumentation in my spine, and I say that my hip hurts. Well, they will try to just strengthen the hip and not look at the whole body. Thank God for holistic doctors like Dr. Donna Mutter and Sharon Rasa in our community and many others who look at the whole person. And not only to see how the body parts connect, but know that we are not just a physical body. That our emotions, our thoughts, our belief systems, what we ingest, what we engage in on a daily basis has impact on our well-being. It can support our healing, or it can add to dis-ease. And looking at that thought, what did I do to deserve this? And we can actually fill it in with, I'm such a what? I'm such a blank person. I'm the only one who had that thought. I'm such a good person. I'm such a wonderful person. And see, that is based on a concept that we bought in, another separation concept of rewards and punishments, right? Well, if you finish all your homework, you can have a piece of cake. If you study and are competitive, you'll get that slot, a few slots in college, because they're not enough for everybody. And then we put that on the God of our understanding, right? Like Santa Claus, making a list, checking it twice, want to know if you're naughty or nice. And we put that concept, our understanding, our human understanding, onto God. Right? How many of you were raised with the thought, count your sins? Metaphysically, sin means missteps, missing the mark. But if you sin, you either go to hell or purgatory. And we know that that's states of consciousness. We could create heaven or hell right here where we are, but there's no separation. So thereby, when something happens, we somehow like, hey God, I've been such a good person. Because we want to make God to be that Santa Claus figure. And so I will get into more of those two concepts next week. So what did Johnny Coleman do to discover those two beliefs she had? That she was a victim and that only the medical staff could help her. And that what did she do to deserve this? How did she move past that? How did she move past those ideas of separation? Well, lo and behold, yes, I cut right to the chase. She joined Unity. I'm done. And she's walking on the water. She walked on water, and all is well. So, the next day, she was living with her parents, and she walked into the living room, and she saw, guess what publication on the floor? Daily Word. I think that magazine saved countless lives, right? And her mother tried to get her to read that inspiration, spiritual messaging book, but Johnny didn't want anything with that spiritual stuff. And this day, after feeling like she had nowhere to turn, isn't that what happens to us? Oh yeah, maybe we should remember to pray and meditate now, right? Or maybe I will seek out a holistic medicine, right? Instead of starting there. So she decided she would pick it up, and the page that she opened to said, in the affirmation part, is that I have been made in the likeness and image of God, therefore wholeness is my birthright. She didn't quite know what that meant, but she knew she felt exhilarated. And she knew she did not want to die. And shortly thereafter, sounds familiar, Myrtle Fillmore, our very own Reverend Joanne, right? If God, if you are real, be real to me. Found the daily word, went to Unity. So there she goes and starts taking, and at the time it was called the Association of Unity Churches. Now it is Unity Worldwide Ministries. So she was taking classes. She couldn't devour the information of Emily, Katie, Eric Butterworth, who happened to be one of her favorites, the Fillmores, and so on and so on. And she started to begin to understand God as a universal life force, the substance of life that can be tapped in for good, instead of this being with a beard, a father figure in the sky. And then she began to realize, well, if all life emanates from this life force, I too must be divine. And that she had the power to create her experiences, that she could, in fact, add to her healing by looking at her consciousness. What thoughts did she hold? What beliefs did she hold? What words came out of her mouth? What were the behaviors she participated in? And she had this new life and exhilaration that filled her. And although those wonderful things were brewing within Johnny Coleman, I actually have a picture of this beautiful woman, this beautiful soul. And although these wonderful things were happening within her, there she walked on Unity grounds that were segregated. Quite different that all individuals emanate from the life source, therefore are divine and sacred. At that time, individuals who were Black were able to take courses at the Institute, but were not permitted to eat at the inn. They were not permitted to swim in the pool on grounds, and they were not permitted to have housing on grounds. Yeah, that's exactly what I felt. A thump in my heart. You see, we have rich teachings, and we have these wonderful things we call unity communities and the unity worldwide, but they are buildings and structures, and it is dependent on the consciousness of the people who fill them in the leadership and the people who sit here that make up the collective energy of whether we are walking and living the truth or walking separation. See, she knew there was nothing wrong with the universal truths, but they were not being lived. And so she went to the powers would be in her class. She was the only Black student at the time, signed a petition. And she said, this behavior is not in alignment with your teachings. And if you do not allow Blacks to have housing on grounds and to use amenities, I would have to say that I would have to withdraw from my studies. So they responded, and she was allowed housing, and slowly the desegregation happened. But it wasn't easy. Even in individual unity ministries, segregation was happening, not just in unity, but in all churches, separate churches. And even the Fillmores at one point, and Eric Butterworth at the time was a minister in Detroit. He even tried to have that, inclusiveness. And some white individuals said that, oh no, in the Bible it's meant that the races should be separated. in the Old Testament. And he reminded that individual, well, we have to look at the historical context, and that they were written by man, and it reflected the times. But they do not reflect the universal teaching of oneness. And I will not have that in this community. And even blacks were not comfortable in the beginning, and can you blame them? They didn't have the trust. And so they wanted their own communities. So slowly, through the years, there was an awakening. What does it mean to walk and live oneness and not just say it? And Johnny Coleman would go on to be the first black minister ordained in New Thought and Unity. She became the first black president on the board of trustees of the association, which is now Unity Worldwide Ministries. But she didn't stop there. That disease, which in all the literature I tried to research never names what it is, but she recovered and lived to the age of 94 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
She then founded her own church in Chicago, Christ Universalist Temple, and thousands of people flocked to her community. She spoke with the authority of her identity, and she inspired others to live it as well. And not only that, she also founded the John E. Coleman Institute, a New Thought seminary, which is recognized. If somebody gets ordained through that, they are welcome to lead a unity community. It is part of the umbrella of the New Thought teachings. She also had a radio show, wrote books, an amazing woman. When I first walked into this unity community, I don't know, 20-something years ago, 25 years ago, what I loved about it was the inclusivity and the diversity. And that was coming from my perspective. I love that we embraced individuals based on race, people coming from different religious backgrounds, whether you were gay or straight. We too in this community have had our own missteps and growing pains when it comes to learning the language of gender and experiencing the transgender community. But my friends, one thing I can tell you, the teachings are not flawed. It is us intersecting with humanity. All day long, we live in a world where we're told different things. Institutions are all based on not enoughness, competition. I've shared this before. And so many times, even if I sit in a meeting in a unity community, and here, I have to remind us, well, in the business world, well, we are to bring our spirituality to the business world, not our business world to our spirituality. We forget, right? When something's not working, let's, instead of saying, what can I do to help? I understand that is part of the human condition. And so, my friends, yes, I am saddened and disappointed in what happened in our movement. And I even saddened and disappointment many times over in other things that I've experienced. But in my growing, I have to understand that everybody who is part of any spiritual community is also walking the human condition. And sometimes when we're walking between the worlds, as Jesus the Master would say, we get confused and we are led by something other than we are one. So I ask you, where are you not living oneness? Where am I, or anything that's happening here? How can we live that more fully? In 2003, Tom Zender, then the CEO of Unity Worldwide Ministries, made a formal apology, although some healing had happened. And that's wonderful, but we must be vigilant to live the truth, not just talk about it. And notice when we make a misstep, call each other higher, not to hit somebody over the head, call each other higher. And that is what I hold in my heart. And so next week I will talk about what Johnny meant about, I am a child of God, or I'm made in the likeness and image of God. I'm getting Myrtle and her mixed up. I'm made in the likeness and image of God. Therefore, wholeness is my birthright. And I will tell you what the meaning is, the rich meaning of that, which you've maybe heard before, but I would like you to hear it in a different perspective. And I'd like to end with a video that is, it's called An Indigenous View on Oneness. Very inspiring, inspirational, and I share it with you now. This woman is from Australia.
My vision for whole of the world would be to have that unity or that oneness. And if the world would have that connection with each other, we would have the same heart, same mind, same spirit. We would overcome all these obstacles that we are fighting this day. The word oppress does not exist in my language. We do not have that. We only live in peace and harmony. Oppression is a white man's word. And of course they've done that to my people of Australia. But for us, we did not dare to fight back. Because we are spiritual people. What we are hoping for and what we want to see is coming together, balancing both culture to be able to understand each other's perspective of life and how to live in a society. People are here as carriers of the land and to look after each other and see the best of all things. But we need to have love. I must love all people, despite of what they are, who they are, what they have done. Because love binds us together in unity. You must have total and complete love to be able to see the beauty of what is here around us, the plants, the trees, the flowers, the waters, the animals, and the constellations, the moon, the sun. You are instantly connected to them when you have your spirituality. And all human in this world have that spirituality. We all have that DNA of spirituality within us.
So we get to choose. May we choose to behold each other, even if we are different in appearance, but with dignity, love, and respect. Have a blessed week.